Here's a rundown of the key points from Quiz 2. So, Athena. The thing that we're getting at here with Athena is that the Greeks seem to characterize her not in conformance with the goddesses or the gods. Athena is characterized in a way that makes her distinct and in a way beyond gender. In other words, she's presented with both masculine and feminine characteristics, both of those in quotes. The individual characteristics of this, the way that she is given male accoutrements and female accoutrements, both behaviorally and in terms of her costume, all of that is in illustration of this fundamental idea that Athena for the Greeks transcends gender in a way that is remarkable and unique. Part of this has to do with the fact that Athena is the patron deity of Athens, and Athens gives us by far the lion's share of Greek culture that has come down to us. Athens turns itself into the arbiter of Greek literature and mythology, and as a result, this means that they prize Athena above all others. And so they seek to elevate Athena above the other goddesses and above the gods as well, acting in a way that is rational, but not but not restricted to the gender conformance of the gods or goddesses. So part of this has to do with we're getting all this from Athens, but the bottom line is Athena is distinctive in her ungenderedness as well as being dual gendered. In other words, she has male-female attributes, and this takes her beyond male-female coding. How would you describe the gods' sexual liaisons with female mortals? Well, that's obvious. They do whatever they want. This has to do with the gods being characterized in a way that shows them to be immoral, as bad examples for humans. The gods act in a responsive and capricious way. They want to get their groove on, and so they act without thinking. They act without rationality. They act without concern of consequences, because for the gods there are no consequences. The gods do not die. The gods do not have any kind of growth, and so the gods keep doing this over and over. The male gods are embodiments of the instinctive lizard brain kind of reaction to stimulus and the seeking of pleasure. And so we see this, beginning with Kronos. Kronos is the example of how the male gods in Greek mythology represent this raw, irrational, responsive, emotional, destructive behavior, in contrast to Rhea, Kronos' counterpart, who represents wisdom and planning and the creation of the future. So the male gods go and do whatever they want and rape whoever they desire as representations of everything that is inherently dangerous about a man. And as a cautionary tale, as a lesson about how men, mortal men, do not behave that way, because mortal men have mortality, which means that they have a need to grow and change themselves before they die, and they have morality, which means placing the community ahead of themselves. Female deities, on the other hand, do not have this limitation, because female deities, as we discussed in our class discussion, are not characterized in this immoral way. Female deities tend to take on the role of either the maiden or the matron, corresponding to those roles in a mortal society. So either we have these so-called virginal goddesses who are aloof from emotional concerns and keep themselves pure. Artemis is a great example of this, but many of the female Greek goddesses fall into this category. Or they carry the role of the matron and are upholders of value and responsibility. Hera is the key example of this, constantly seeking to uphold the marriage that she is in, and the virtues of marriage, and the need to transmit those values. And so the female goddesses tend not to have these random sex escapades, and the consequences of this are mapped out. The other thing about the gods' dalliances, the male gods' dalliances, is that it always ends badly for the woman. Greek mythology tends to produce these tragic stories for the women that the male gods get involved in and then abandon. And so this is another part of the lesson. That's the consequences for this raw male unrestrained behavior don't fall upon the men, they fall upon the women, and that's consequential to society with a great deal of reverberation outward. So this is part of the moral lesson that is meant for the mortal male audience. The readings, I just want to mention the Nixon article, Demeter and Kore. We're going to be coming back to Demeter and Kore as this archetype of the female god being a creator of the future. This is in a literal sense because the female is able to produce life, and Demeter is a classic example of this. Earth gods and agricultural gods tend to be female because the fertility of the land is obviously very closely associated with the biological fertility of the human female. But the relationship between Demeter and Kore, Demeter, is giving us this sense of eternity, and Kore is giving us this sense of purity and how it is endangered. So once again, Demeter is showing us the matron, and Kore is showing us the maiden. The myth of Pandora, the Zeitlin article, there's a lot to look at here. And if you end up writing about Pandora or something like this for your position paper, you want to look at this article because the initial idea of blaming Pandora for the ills of mankind is actually a great deal more complex. As I mentioned in the discussion, the myth of Pandora is really about Prometheus having injured the gods, and the gods responding with this this butthurt, this anger and retaliation, and Pandora is the unwilling instrument of this. And so Pandora being blamed for this is actually a commentary about how the things that men do are being blamed on women. The Greeks are conscious of this, and even Hesiod, who has problems with women and who's accused of misogyny, writes about Pandora in a way that demonstrates his awareness that Pandora is a victim, and that the real problem here is the wrath of the gods being visited not merely upon the perpetrator but upon the community as a whole, because that's the way the justice of the Greek gods works. And this article also discusses Hecate in relation to Pandora, and how Hesiod writes about both of these women as being along the boundary between the mortal world, the world of the mundane, where mortals have to make decisions, and the world of the gods, where the gods are doing their own thing and not held accountable to rules or morality. So Pandora, Hecate, closely related in Hesiod, and this is brought out in the Zeitlin article. The virginal Olympian goddesses, and what this really means is non-married, non-monogamous. The Olympian goddesses, Athena is accounted amongst these. Artemis, Hestia, these are the virginal goddesses because they do not engage in relationships with men. Not that they're actually literally virginal necessarily. This term virginal refers to these goddesses operating as individuals on their own initiative and according to their own authority. So the answer here is Hera, who is married to Zeus and who acts in relation to her bond with Zeus, even though Zeus, because he is immoral, does not always act this way. What do you think about Theogony? Well, there are a lot of things that can be mentioned here. Theogony talks about the Titans and how powerful they are. The male Titans as animalistic and destructive. The females as rational creation of the future. The children of Zeus are, the first children are, this group of daughters that are responsible for human inspiration. So the fact that they're first and the fact that the muses are female are remarkable, are indications of the importance of the muses to humans and the importance of humans to the gods. The fact that the muses are created first by Zeus. The discussion of Hecate that I've already mentioned. Hecate is the most important goddess to Hesiod, and a unique kind of deity because she stands across this boundary, and so has a kind of power and authority that the Greek gods, who are all on the god side, don't have. And the betrayal of Prometheus and how this results in the story of Pandora. The beauty of women and how men are, once again, as we saw with Works and Days, men are vulnerable to the beauty of women because men are weak. And so all of this comes into play in the philosophy of Hesiod, where the world of men is in a sorry state, because men are not living up to what mortals are capable of. And that's the end of the quiz. Please email me with any questions.